Greetings. My name is Koli Aziza, and I'd like to welcome you to Mariama Learning, where we support early learners' needs. I've worked with young people in early childhood education for over 30 years, and understanding that learning begins at home, I decided that I wanted to support families and provide them with ideas and resources to make learning fun and developmentally appropriate for their young people. We also want to remember to meet our young people where they are at. If an activity is too easy for them, move to something more difficult. If it's too difficult, give them something that is more on their level. It is important to remind ourselves of the fact that we all learn at varying paces and we all have individual learning styles. Sometimes we forget that when we really want our child to learn something, we forget, wow, maybe they learn this way, so I need to change it up and teach them a different way. Now, you may ask, what is early childhood? Early childhood includes little ones that are newborns through 8 years of age. Most of my experiences have been with pre-K, 4 and 5-year-olds, and sometimes 3-year-olds with a variety of learning needs. So most of my discussion will center around activities that are appropriate for that age group. In today's session, I'd like to focus on simple activities that you can do at home to strengthen your child's fine motor skills. The development of fine muscle and fine motor, which are those muscles that are in your hands, that's so important as a person's strength in this area affects basic daily activities like picking things up, opening and closing things like doors and drawers, pouring, putting on clothes, tying shoes, using eating utensils, and of course, using writing tools like pencils and crayons. There are simple activities that I have always liked to do in my classroom and that you can do around the house with your child that will be a lot of fun, so much fun. Your child won't even realize that they're working on these skills. They're also open-ended activities. And by open-ended, I mean they're activities that the children can just take anywhere. They can use their creativity and they can make whatever they'd like. I want to show you the first activity, and that would be shaving cream. I have a plate here. You can just use the table if you'd like, or you could use a tray. Shaving cream is great, again, because it's an open-ended activity. Children can just make whatever they like. It's also a sensory activity, and sensory activities work really well with children to calm them down. So whenever I have used this activity in my classroom with a child that might be upset, anxious, we get out some shaving cream, spray it on the table or on a tray, and let them get to working those hands, those palms, those fingers in the shaving cream. And they can make whatever they like. If you're working on something with them, like maybe shapes, you can have them make circles, you can have them make lines, you can have them make whatever shapes you're working on. But the thing that I really want to stress is when you're working on these activities, really let the children just explore and do what they'd like to do. You might suggest, if you're working on shapes, you might suggest that they make a circle or triangle if you're working on that. But then just leave them alone and let them do their own thing. And you'll be surprised that the children will extend what you're teaching them. So if you're working on making circles with them, and then you just leave them alone and let them do what they want, they may then make a happy face. Say, oh, look, I made a face. I made a circle, and then I made a whole face. So shaving cream is great for moving those palms, those fingers, getting them working. It's like an exercise. It's like a massage on those hands. It's sensory. It calms them down. But of course, for what we're talking about, it is definitely good for that fine motor and fine muscle It's a great activity. So I just demonstrated for you how you could use shaving cream. Again, you can spray it on a tray or on the table and let your child get to working those fine muscles in their fingers and in their hands. Again, children love it because it is sensory. It calms them down if they're having any anxiety, and it's open-ended because they can just have fun and be creative with it, but they are working those fine muscles. Very easy to get. Of course, it's shaving cream. You probably already have it in your home. I bought that at the dollar store. Next activity is finger paint. I also bought these little containers at the dollar store, so you could get a lot of these. Now, your child could just dip their finger in this and use their fingers to finger paint. And so they're working on those muscles in their fingers. What I like to do in the classroom was I let the children choose what colors they like, give them a choice of 2 or 3 or 4, whatever you'd like to do. And I would just drop some finger paint on their paper, and then I would let them get to moving those hands and their fingers just like they do with the shaving cream. And then if they want to actually paint with their fingers, fine. But I just loved seeing them have fun, moving their hands around and creating whatever they'd like. Again, you can suggest activities based on what you're working on. But with these things, I encourage you to let your children be creative and let them be the activities that are fun for them. I think that we stress our children out a lot by constantly dictating to them what we want them to do. These activities are easy to do and fun for your children. The last one I'd like to show you, well, actually, it's not the last one. I have one more after this. But this one is one of my favorites. It's Play-Doh. I think my niece, who's now 15, played with Play-Doh until she was about 10 years old. Then she moved to slime because she started making slime. Play-Doh is very easy to make, and I will have a recipe for you in the description. The great thing about Play-Doh, again, it's open-ended, so you can make all kinds of things with this and create. But Play-Doh, you begin to do other things with the fine motor. You pull with the Play-Doh. You can pinch with the Play-Doh. You're working on that ability to pinch, and also the pincer grasp is the grasp you need when you're holding your pencil and your crayon. And also you're rolling the Play-Doh. You can also get tools at the dollar store, or you can get them online that are not expensive, that are like cookie cutters, where you can flatten the Play-Doh like this, and then you can use those cutters to make imprints in the Play-Doh. Play-Doh is a really good place to start to teach your children how to cut. Now, I don't like to stress children out with cutting, because especially with our children that have difficulty with fine motor and visual motor, cutting can be very stressful. So take your time with that if you see that your children are having difficulty with that. But a great place to start with that, if they are having difficulty, or even if you're just trying to teach them, is with the Play-Doh, because children love Play-Doh. And you can get some children's scissors that are plastic, and they can begin cutting the Play-Doh. That's really fun for them. The last activity that I wanted to show you, let's go over what we did so far. So we did the shaving cream, which I showed you the shaving cream, finger paints, Play-Doh, and the last one I wanted to talk about is water. We don't think how children playing with water is building their fine motor skills. And that's also an open-ended activity. I remember when I was a little girl and I used to be in the bathtub, that was like I was playing with my dolls. We were at a beach. We will, in the Caribbean, I used to create all kinds of things. So it's open-ended as well because your child is creating all kinds of things, but you can also work now. We're moving to visual tracking with that. So I have some tools here that I want to show you. So if you use different containers, these are my measuring cups from home. So this is just stuff you have at home. And if your child's in the bathtub, they can put water in the measuring cup, pour the water from the measuring cup into this container. Again, you can take this down to our our young early learners, 1, 2 years old. Now, for our children that are having delays in this area, you still want to work on this with them. But this is visual tracking, just getting the water, pouring the water into the container. How are they tracking? They have to track in order to get it in there. Their eye has to track the water going from one container to the next. And you can use all different sizes. If you want to get a water table, you can do that. You can get a container and just put water in it and let your children play either outside or somewhere in the kitchen or wherever you feel comfortable in your house. But I figured the bathtub is the easiest place. When you're taking a bath, let them play in that water and get those visual tracking skills working using different containers, pouring water from one container to the next. So with our water, we can do so much with that. We always want to focus on more than one skill while we're doing these activities. And I hope I've made that clear. But I didn't say with the water, you can also work on science. Because while you're doing the water, you can be talking about, while you're doing the water activity, you can talk to your children about what sinks, what floats, so you can put different toys in there with them in the bathtub or at the water table, things that float and things that sink, and why do they float and why do they sink? Also, again, remember, we talked about the visual tracking. So your child is holding things, so they're working on their fine motor in holding, but they're also tracking as they pour to make sure that the water goes from one container to the next. And we need visual tracking when we are writing. We need visual tracking when we are reading. So that is an excellent skill that's easy for children to do and fun while they're playing in the water that they will need when they begin doing other things with their fine motor, like writing, and then another skill, reading. All right, so the next thing I want to do is show you 2 tools that you may have in your house, you may not, but they're easy to get, that can help your child with their fine motor skills as well. The first one that I really, really love, and it worked with a young man that I was working with last year, as soon as we went virtual, they are tongs. It was a young man who was having problems with his fine motor. He was weak. His mom, he had some fine motor skills that we were working on, specifically with his writing, because he was in pre-K and his class was working on writing. And he resisted writing. He didn't really like to do it. And so once he went home and we were working virtually, I told his mom to try, because he loves playing with his toys and his action heroes, she said, I need activities to help him build his fine motor. But he just wants to play with his toys. And I said, well, this is a thing that you can do. He also didn't like to clean up his toys. I said, use the tongs, which will help with strengthening those hands, because you have to close and open the tongs, close and open the tongs. And what he did was use these to clean up his toys. So when it was time to clean up, he would use this and pick up his toys. And Mom just had these around the house. When I mentioned it to her, she said, I have those around the house, I'll use them. And he would put everything away. Now, using these, again, we want to focus on other skills as well while we're doing this. You can have a child sort. So you can have them put all their big toys in one container, have them put all their little toys in another container, or you can do it by color, red, blue, however you'd like your child to sort. But tongs are great. And the mom that I was working with said this was really great for her child, and it really helped him get those hands moving. She didn't know if it would work, and he loved then to clean up, because before then he didn't want to clean up. But when he was able to use this, it really got him going and helped him clean up. So I love these, and they come in different sizes. You can find them online. They have them at the dollar store. I'm sure many of you already have these at your house, but they do have different sizes if this may be too big for your child, okay? So tongs, they work really well to help get those hands moving. The other one that I love is the clothespin. And we'll come back to this in our next video, but the clothespin really is helpful with developing pinching. And we need pinching for a lot of things if you think about it. I mean, just buttoning even. Certainly when we are writing, we need to be able to develop that pincer grasp. And so with the clothespin, what I'd like to do in the classroom when we had Dramatic Play Center was use the clothespins to help children put up and match clothing on the clothing line. We would use some very strong or thick yarn and hang it across the room, and we had clothes, and they would put the clothes on the clothing line. Sometimes we would have things that match, like socks. And so then we were working on matching as well. So again, we want to get in more than one skill there, but the clothespin works really well. The children love it, and they have to focus. I was working when I did that in dramatic play with 4 and 5-year-olds, and I watched them, and they really had to pay attention and open up that clothespin and then hold the clothes on the clothing line. They're even pinching then actually to do that and then put it up there. They had to really concentrate, but they loved it because they were playing, they were pretending, but they were also working on those fine motor skills, working on that pinching and that pincer grasp. Now, we talked about the clothespins that I love to use to help develop that pinching and the pincer grasp. Now, this is an example. I wanted to give you a demonstration of what we did in the classroom. So we used some heavy yarn in the classroom because that's what we had in the art closet at our school. But what I did was I went to Lowe's and I got some rope, and it was only $4. And I am using this to demonstrate for you how you can use this at home. So I did say that in dramatic play, the children would hang up the clothes on the clothesline, and we would also have them match. Specifically, actually, I didn't mention this, but we did the 3 little kittens who lost their mittens and they began to cry. So we actually had mittens that we had them match. We actually made paper mittens. I don't expect you to do all of that. I feel like this is something you can do when you're doing your laundry. When you wash your clothes, after you dry them. I know I always lose my socks. So this is a way that your child can get in working on those fine muscle pincer grasp and pinching, and help you around the house so that you don't lose your socks. When you're finished with the laundry, get your socks together and have your child put them on the clothing line. Again, this is just some rope that I got from Lowe's. I already put those up. But again, here you go. They're using that pinching, and they're also matching their socks at the same time. And that way you get in that activity, they're focused, because again, when I use this in dramatic play, the children loved it, but they had to focus. It wasn't simple for them. They had to really focus. Plus they're matching, so they have to look through the socks and match them. And then when you're done, you have all your socks, because I know I'd really appreciate that because I never know where my socks are. So remember, get the clothespins, So you can work on those pencil grasp and the pinching. And if you have tongs in the house, use these to help your child build those hand muscle skills, and they can clean up with this. They really like that. Check out the description box below for a recipe for Play-Doh and a great link to a resource from occupational therapists. They are the ones who have taught me a lot of what I've learned on how to build fine motor skills in the classroom. Thank you for watching.